my name is Susan Bowerman. I'm a registered dietitian and Senior Director of Worldwide Nutrition and Education and Training here at Herbalife Nutrition, and I'm also Chair of the Herbalife Nutrition Dietetic Advisory Board. I'm so happy to be doing this training. It's a training I've been wanting to do for a while, where we're going to spend some time today talking about how to use our products in Herbalife recipes. All right, so let's talk now that we have that framework and we know how we want to incorporate some of these healthy foods and stay with our global nutrition philosophy. What do we need to do to create some new recipes with our products? Well, there's a couple of things. What I've often done, and those of you who watch my videos know that I love to create recipes with our products. I love our products on their own, of course, but when I start to think about our products, I think about them as ingredients. I think about what will they lend to a recipe. If I add a product to a recipe, so for example, if I'm making a pancake or I'm making a waffle or some type of bread, if I just want to add something, maybe I want to just add probiotic, that's a super easy thing to do. It usually isn't going to affect a recipe. Whereas if I want to add PPP to a recipe or I want to add Formula 1, that may change it. And so it may take a little bit of experimentation to get the recipe just right. You also want to consider how the flavor of the product that you're going to include is going to affect your recipe. Not only the flavor profile of the product itself, but how can you combine them? So, for example, the combination of just mixing tea and aloe, or mixing aloe with CR7, or mixing aloe with beauty drink. There's so many different ways that you can combine products, and the flavor profile can really change depending on how you do that. The other thing is that you want to think not only about how adding a product will change the recipe, but what if you want to replace the ingredients? So for example, in baking, I know a lot of people like to use our products to boost the protein content, but it's not as simple as removing, let's say, the flour in a baked recipe and replacing it with protein powder or replacing it with Formula 1 or PPP. They're going to function very differently in recipes. And so this is why, for those of you who enjoy cooking, I would say that these baking projects may take a little bit of time, but they're worth the effort because you can do so much nutritionally. But this is the way you have to think about how the ingredients are going to work. But do find inspiration, scrolling through social media, that's where I find a lot of inspiration just to see what new things are people making, what kinds of foods are they looking for. There are so many different products that you can make and different recipes that you can make using Herbalife nutrition products. Obvious ones are things like popsicles there up on the top left, or in the bottom in the center there. I know overnight oats and puddings that we can make using our Formula 1. But then if you want to expand a little bit more into baked goods, you see waffles there. And of course, pancakes are popular, muffins at the top. I've done savory crackers like you see in the middle using PPP. Bottom right there, you see protein balls. These are made with using Formula 1 or using Rebuild Strength and dried fruits, and they don't even require any cooking, but they make really great snacks. And there on the left, I've even done some gummy treats that I've done with collagen beauty drinks. So there's lots of different forms that your recipes can take where we can incorporate our Herbalife products. So here's some simple things that you can do. If you're just starting out with making recipes, the first thing I would think about is, how can you add more protein to a recipe? So PPP, for example, is such an easy thing to add to foods because it doesn't have any flavor. And so, of course, you can put it into your shakes, but you can put it into dips like guacamole or hummus. You can stir it into hot cereals. If you make oatmeal in the morning, you can add PPP to it. The other thing I like to add there, by the way, is active fiber because it just makes a good combination. But you can also add it to savory things. So you can add it to soup. You can add it to mashed potatoes. You can add it to eggs. So think about ways that you can just simply boost the protein in a recipe. And that's a good place to start. Protein drink mix, of course, is sweeter, but it has a lot of applications as well. And you can see the list there. I've used it in a lot of baked goods, for example, to add sweetness as well as add protein. Or you can just stir it into yogurt. If you do that, you actually end up with something that has almost a spreadable consistency, and you can do some interesting things with that. The other thing that you can do is you can use Rebuild Strength. I love to use this product in recipes because I like the fact that it has that dairy protein, and it makes a great post-workout snack if you incorporate it into baked goods or hot cereal, or, as I said, if you make it into some of these protein balls or protein bites. These are really good ways to be able to use 24 products. Beauty drink. Tastes wonderful in your shakes. Simple recipe, just stir it into some yogurt. It tastes delicious, and it's a kind of a fun way to get your collagen beauty drink. And protein coffee. Protein coffee is wonderful, also stirred into yogurt. I've made different types of dessert recipes using protein coffee. And so these desserts now become a little bit healthier for you because they're providing a bit more protein. So these are simple things you can do in terms of protein. Here's a recipe, and I know the team will share these with you. But I was in a grocery store one day, and they were sampling this chocolate hummus, and they said, oh, it's great, you can dip fruit into it. And I thought, I know I can do this with Rebuild. And I went home and I experimented, and it was so simple. You know, hummus generally uses garbanzo beans. I decided to use a milder white bean because I didn't want the garbanzos to overwhelm the flavor. So this is how you have to think about ingredients, and combined it with the Rebuild Strength. I wanted to get some more natural sweetness, so I used some dried plums, or you can use dates. It needed a little bit of hot water, and then to make it extra chocolatey, I put in some dark cocoa powder. But this ended up being delicious, wonderful with fruit, got a lot of protein from the Rebuild, and it was just such a fun way to use our products in a really, really unique and different way. Now, we talked a little bit about flavor. So again, think about your products in terms of what flavors they offer, all the different flavors of Formula One, the wonderful flavors of coffee that so many people love. We have a number of flavors of tea, and I've used this in many ways, not just adding it to shakes, but I've used tea to cook grains in. You know, it adds a nice flavor to rice, for example. So lots you can do there. Aloe, again, wonderful combined with other products like tea or combined with CR7, but you can use it in marinades. You can use it in salad dressings. There's a number of ways that you can use that flavor to enhance a recipe. Beauty drink, as we said, has a wonderful strawberry lemonade flavor that adds a lot of delicious flavor to many recipes. And then, of course, the apple flavor in your active fiber. So here's an example where I use just the vanilla flavor of Formula One to make something like an overnight French toast. And it's similar to an overnight oats, except that this one is actually cooked in the microwave. So rather than oats, we use a slice of whole grain bread cut into cubes and mixed with some raisins. Then we combine Formula One, some PPP, some milk, and an egg, mix that up, pour that on top, cover it, and let it refrigerate overnight so that the bread has a chance to absorb the liquid. And then you microwave it for 2.5 to 3 minutes, and it's so delicious. And you can see there are 30 grams of protein in this really healthy dish, and the wonderful flavor that we get from Formula One, although you could use other flavors. But this is a really, really fun and easy recipe where you can experiment with different flavors of Formula One. Now, the other thing is you can add more fiber to your recipe as well. So fiber can go into your shakes, into cereals, into sauces. I've used it to make what we would call here in the US a barbecue sauce for chicken, because that apple combined with something acidic, where I put some vinegar in there, and it just, you kind of got this nice sweet and sour flavor. So it's really fun to think about, well, how will that apple flavor work? How does it work stirred into yogurt? How does it work in a muffin? It's delicious in a muffin or a pancake. So lots of ways that you can get more fiber, because as I said, a lot of us aren't getting the fiber that we need every day. Here's a simple, simple way that you can take advantage of the properties of fiber. And so this is an ingredient, for example, where fiber, our active fiber complex, has a type of fiber in it that's called soluble fiber. It dissolves in water, and when that happens, it tends to thicken. And so this is one of those times where I wanted to take advantage of that thickening property of the active fiber to come up with a really simple fruit topping. This one I think is really best with berries. If you have fresh berries, or if you have some frozen mixed berries and you thaw them and crush them. I put in a little herbal tea concentrate for flavor, that's optional. But if you mix this with active fiber complex, use that apple flavor, it might need a little bit of water, or you could use aloe. And if you let this stand for a few minutes, it thickens up and it really just becomes almost like a jam. And what a great way to take advantage of this thickening property of the fiber, to get more fiber in the diet, to be able to put this into yogurt or on top of a hot cereal, or I've even used this in a shake. It's kind of fun because if you add it when you're serving it, it sinks to the bottom and it looks really cool. So there's a lot of ways that you can use this fruit topping. And again, a super, super simple recipe. Adding healthy fats, sometimes we want to do that because fat adds a texture and a smoothness to recipes. So avocado is great in your shakes, for example. It adds a richness and a smoothness, as well as some healthy fat. Nuts and nut butter adds a lot of flavor. It does add calories, but for people who need that calorie boost and you're also getting some protein, this is a good way to add some. Or adding seeds like chia seeds or flax seeds or sunflower seeds. These are ways that you can either put them into something that's being blended like a shake, or you can put them on top like you see in the image there. And again, a recipe that will be shared, but this is a protein ball that's made using seeds. So using chia seeds as some healthy fat, as well as peanut butter. You can use other nut butters. And these are combined with some mashed banana, some dried fruit, some rolled oats, and then Formula 1 and Rebuild Strength. These are just rolled into balls. They're rolled into a coating made with Rebuild and Formula 1 and coconut. And what this does is it creates something that you can snack on. It doesn't require any cooking. You store them in the refrigerator, and they're really handy and great to have around. So again, a simple way that you can incorporate products for those of you who don't do a lot of experimenting in the kitchen. The last thing I wanted to talk about in this section is just about how you go about doing a simple recipe makeover. So this is an example of a recipe that I came across. It was very simple. It was just a frozen yogurt pop that was made with milk and some Greek-style vanilla yogurt and some honey. And that's fine and sounded great. But as I looked at it, I thought, I wonder if I could get more protein in there. Could I put some Formula 1 into this pop? Could I add some fruit to it? It would make it prettier, number one, and it would add some fiber and vitamins and minerals and those phytonutrients we talked about. Or could I reduce the honey? Is there something else that I could do to make it sweet without having to add honey to it? So as a revision, what I decided to do, I kept the milk and I kept the yogurt, but rather than the honey, I used the Formula 1 for flavor. And of course, there is, again, some fructose in there, which is a natural sugar, but it does add some great sweetness to our pops. And I'm adding vitamins and minerals, and I'm adding protein by adding that Formula 1. And then I snuck in some fruit. So I put in a half a cup of berries, or you can use oranges. And you can see what a great healthy snack that is for 75 calories. Getting back to that whole idea of our calorie wallet and how do we want to spend our calories. Spending 75 calories and being able to buy 7 grams of protein for a snack is a pretty good deal. So hopefully this has been an inspiration to many of you, and just to remind you that there's lots and lots of recipes. If you're timid and you haven't really tried too many of these, there's a number of recipes that you can find on myherbalife.com. If you go to the resource center, you're going to find many, many recipes there that are going to show you some wonderful ways that you can use our products in recipes. So hopefully this has been inspiring to you. It's been wonderful sharing this time with you. So happy. And I can't wait to see your recipes, and I'll look forward to seeing the ones that you share on your social media accounts.